there's a news channel, Newswatch 10, which was very close to my news channel that I work for, Newswatch 12. And it was very creepy to see.
Oh man, maybe it's foreshadowing. Stay away from any axes.
Let's go.
What a lovely day!
Andy, there's a whole world out there. Jump in.
Can you dig it?
Yeah.
You must always pay strict attention.
I was just completely enamored by it the entire time.
Dude, he did not have to go that hard.
I know, man. Isn't it wild?
The Jaredcast.
So it begins.
Hello. Welcome back to the Jaredcast. This is Gerald. That was a bad idea. All right, poor choices right off the bat.
First
welcome
episode
back.
to scare a dog. Check.
Yeah. Surprised. He thought it was Pennywise. No, we're back. I'm Jared. I'm one of your hosts. This is Jared, one of your other hosts. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Jared. I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about some Stephen King. His whole thing is awesome with the books, but I've only read one.
Yeah, which one?
Carrie.
Carrie. Okay. I haven't read that one.
Yeah.
I've now finished it, which is why we're doing this episode, because I finished it and I've dragged him into it.
Yeah.
And I got halfway through Salem's Lot and kind of forgot about it, but I need to finish that.
Is that the
I thought
vampire
there was
one?
one more. I don't really know what it is yet.
Okay. My bad.
I haven't gotten that deep into it, but
The one I really want to read though is Misery, because that movie's been a part of my life for since childhood, and it's terrifying. But I heard that the book is like even crazier, so I want to get into it.
Yeah, I remember you introduced me to the movie. I hadn't seen it till we watched it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, we're not talking about that today. We're talking about It and The Shining.
Yeah.
Two classics. Well, I guess one classic and one one newer one. Two classic books turned movies. Two of his most popular movies for sure.
Yes.
I'm excited. Both are bangers. But before we get into that, we got a pretty snazzy top 5 today.
Yeah. Our top 5 is our top 5 scariest scenes in non-horror movies. This is kind of perfect for this episode, because so much of these what these movies are about children, and about what scares children, and about growing up. And the reason why I picked this top 5, and the reason why this top 5 was kind of easy for me to fill out, was because I just picked scenes from my childhood that scared the shit out of me. Because
I went to at least 2 of them were that direction for me.
Yeah, my number 1 is a movie I saw as an adult, but the first 4 are definitely ones that like have been with, because I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies as a kid, so like, or at least not like crazy horror movies. Like I could see Jaws and stuff, but.
My parents called me a wimp because I didn't, because I was afraid, because I was a wimp.
Yeah. There are still plenty of horror directors out there who delve into other genres, and they get to flex their chops there and scare the shit out of me in those things. So starting with my number 5, an indie horror director got his chance to make it big with The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. And so when Peter Jackson came up with the birth of the Uruk-hai in mud and this weird thin membrane, and they strangled the people that created them as soon as they got out of their birth, I was like, I had nightmares about that shit for years. Yeah. And it was great. I loved it a lot. So that was my number 5.
Hell yeah. My number 5 is one that we've already talked about. Ooh, it's a movie we covered. And it's definitely also from my childhood, and it's the tunnel scene from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
That's a good one.
It's a
That's a
fucking
good one.
nightmare. It's a fever dream. It's a great scene. I love it. I still love it, but it was kind of horrifying the first because it's just so out of nowhere. That's where most of these come from. It's just
Yeah.
just catches you off guard.
I feel it. Yeah. This one, my number 4 like kept me on guard every time I was inside of a kitchen, because it's the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park. It's still the scariest moment of the entire Jurassic Park franchise. Seeing the kids have to being almost outsmarted by velociraptors was terrifying. The little claw tapping on the floor like that, like it was like teasing them and hunting them and like just enjoying itself. It's crazy to me. It's crazy. And they were so persistent. Even when they were going through the vents, it didn't help. Crazy movie, but I loved it, and it scared me, and I hid behind the couch.
That makes 2 movies that we've already covered on the podcast. Eventually, all our top 5s are just going to be every movie we've talked about.
Yep.
One that we didn't talk about, though, it wouldn't be a scary, not in horror movie list if Aronofsky didn't make an appearance.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I went with Black Swan when she's like peeling feathers out of her back and like picking off her fingernails and shit.
Yeah.
It's gross, and it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah. Very strong performance by both Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis.
What a great movie.
My number 3 is directed by a lovely horror director named Sam Raimi, who blew up in the mainstream even more than he did with Evil Dead 2 with the Spider-Man franchise. The scene that I picked is Doc Ock's awakening in Spider-Man 2 when he's about to have surgery, and the tentacles come to life without him even knowing, and they basically, like, the entire sequence is basically a short film that's a horror movie. Like, these doctors, these doctors that are just doing their jobs get absolutely slaughtered by these tentacles. There's this crazy scene of this Asian lady, and she's being dragged across the floor, and you can see her fingernails scraping the paint off the floor because she's so scared, and she just gets dragged into shadow. And this was a kid's movie. Like, this was a movie that like, oh my gosh. The classic, Raimi didn't invent it, but he loved using that technique of like showing violent things as shadows projected on a wall so that you don't get too overwhelmed. And there's plenty of that in there. It's also very masterfully crafted in general. So yeah.
Hell yeah. My number 4 is from Tim Burton, but not a Tim Burton movie that you might expect. It's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. The Large Marge scene.
I totally forgot about that.
Scared the fuck out of me as a kid. Speaking of random horror scenes that are out of fucking nowhere, they just spring that on you.
Yeah, like it scares me as an adult. Like,
it's fucking crazy, dude. My mom and I loved that movie growing up, and that scene was already like I was cringing the whole time waiting for it every rewatch.
Yeah, I forgot about that scene for this list, but for this list I didn't add it, but I considered the clown surgery scene. I thought that was pretty, because he's just a normal surgeon and he takes off his mask and it's
It's a wild movie. Maybe we need to do that movie at some point, because I actually really love that movie.
Yeah, we'll do an episode on back when Tim Burton was good.
Yep.
My number 2 is also a kids movie. It's from a kids movie. This one is the earliest one that I've watched on this from this list at least. But it's the one. So it's the one that stuck with me the longest, and it really emotionally affected me because I was like not prepared at all for Lampwick's transformation in Pinocchio into a donkey.
Yeah.
It's really crazy because you get this kid who's like this delinquent, right? He's a badass kid. He's a leader. He's Pinocchio's first human friend. And like you're like, okay, this kid's kind of cool. He's smoking and he's drinking and he hates authority and he spits in the face and vandalizes.
It's our little anarchist.
Yeah, he's a little anarchist, and I like that about him. And then, but because the curse of Pleasure Island is that all the bad kids turn into donkeys, and then sold into slavery, which is crazy. This kid as soon as he sees himself like slowly turning into a donkey, he's like call for help, call your cricket, call everybody. Is like, and then he starts screaming for his mother. Like this kid who hates authority starts screaming for his mother and then turns into a donkey. Like you can see his fists close and slowly shake into hooves. Ugh, it was gross. And apparently in the original story, it's even worse. Like Pinocchio meets him later on a farm because he was sold as a donkey on a farm and gets worked to death. Like
Fuck.
it's real dark. Yeah, it's real dark. But that's why that movie stuck with me so long, is because I was like, damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, great pick. My number 2 is also from a kids movie. That's Train Spotting.
Yeah.
with the baby on the ceiling. That's just creepy as fuck. Anytime a baby's crawling over me and its head fucking turns around to stare at me, I'm out. I hate it.
Oh my god, yes. That's also a crazy movie for sure.
Yeah, that movie could have a lot of picks on this list, honestly.
Yeah. Good pick.
Thank you.
My number 1 is the only one I didn't see as a kid, for good reason, I think. I'm glad I waited until I was an adult to watch it so that I can appreciate it. But it's the Nightmare at Winky's Diner from Mulholland Drive. This scare is one of the best jump scares in history because they tell you exactly how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen. Like literally, they say it in the script. Like the character says it. Like, this is how I died in my dream, and then it happens. Like it happens right there, exactly how he says it, and it still gets me. Like I still jumped. I was like, "What the hell? How did he do that? How did he do that?"
Yeah,
that scene is one of the reasons why I love David Lynch.
I was gonna put it on my list, but I had a feeling you would, so I didn't.
For sure.
My number 1, I couldn't watch as a kid because it wasn't out yet. This one's from a 2020 movie.
Ooh.
A lot of these have been like jump scares or like kind of body horror or just out of nowhere shit. This is the most real fear. This will scare you to your core, and it's the entirety of The Father.
Oh,
that shit's real horror.
Yeah,
that is like my biggest nightmare, is going through that or having somebody else go through that, and it scares the shit out of me every day of my life, and so I had to include it.
Damn, dude. That's a great pick. I didn't even think about that. Sheesh.
I was between that or have you seen Diving Bell and the Butterfly?
I actually have it.
And it's about you might know what it's about. If you're the audience and you don't know what it's about, some dude gets like paralyzed, but he has locked in syndrome, so he can move his eyes and he feels everything, but he just can't move or talk or do anything. And that shit's terrifying to me.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do 2 on the list that are like, oh, this concept of this movie. And so The Father beat it out a little bit.
Yeah. That's a great pick. It's a really hard movie to watch too.
For real.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks. We blew through those. I feel like we usually get distracted a lot more.
Yeah.
Look at us go. I'm proud.
That top 5 should have been 8 minutes longer, but it was.
Yeah.
Congrats us.
Go us. And that's just 8 minutes longer that we can talk about the movie It from 2017. Not doing the miniseries this go around. But before we get into it,
Cool.
Bad reviews.
we've got another installment of Jared reads poorly written reviews of movies that we watch because it's funny and it makes him laugh and stuff.
Yeah.
This one comes from Carl Harvey, 1972. Gave it a 1 out of 10, saying it was candy-coated perversity directed at an age group that should not be watching.
Okay.
What is this? Horror for kids? This movie convinces me the world has gone mad. This is entertainment for what age group exactly? If it's for adults, why is there such childish humor and dialogue appealing to the sensibilities of an age group that should not be watching this level of blood, guts, and graphic murder? The storyline is directed toward a certain mentality, which is not the appeal to adults, at least not mature adults. Why on earth is this so popular? It failed to scare me on so many levels. I found myself imagining better scenes. How is it acceptable that kids of 12 years old were in the audience, looking at images of even younger children in the movies, having their arm torn from their body, a man with a knife right in his throat? What the hell? As soon as it was revealed that the horrors were their imaginations, it was a pointless exercise. What happened to all the kids that were floating down at the end? Where was the main character's brother at the end? Wait for the next episode? No thanks. I would have enjoyed a psychological horror, but gore is not what I was expecting. Shows a lack of imagination by the director that he had to resort to this level of candy-coated perversity. What a shame.
I don't even know what perversity means.
I
don't
have
think
no
that's a word.
idea. It might be. Maybe pervertedness.
Let's look it up, Carl.
Yeah, Carl, 1972.
Perversity is the word.
Oh, my bad.
No, well, I mean, not you, Carl.
No, he did write perversity. I just mispronounced.
Oh.
That one is on me.
That's okay. That's okay.
That's.
I do remember seeing little kids in that theater, and I was like, "This is way too intense for these kids. Why is it? Why are they in here?"
But there's little kids in every horror movie that I've ever seen in theaters. Like
That's true.
I feel like it's just normal.
Yeah.
I also like that they had no knowledge of the previous subject matter whatsoever, which is mostly why I did it, because The Shining only had bad reviews that were like, "Oh, the book's better," and so like this one, I wanted something that was just a blank slate. They had no idea that the book existed.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Good job, Carl.
Thank you, Carl, for your contribution.
Yeah.
Yeah, It 2017, one of the biggest movies of the 2010s, probably one of the most popular. I don't know if it's still the highest grossing horror movie, but adjusted for inflation at the time of release, it was. It broke that record, and it was the 5th highest grossing rated R movie of all time. It fucking blew up crazy big. Mostly, well, not mostly, but I think it put a lot of butts in the seats riding off the high of Stranger Things and starring Finn Wolfhard. That gave it a lot, but it's also a great movie from a great source material. Andres Muschietti killed it directing. And I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. Rewatching it this time around, I actually enjoyed it less than my first like 3 watches when it was kind of freshly out. Probably just because of some pacing issues. I feel like it feels a bit rushed, and they really don't accomplish much of anything in the first hour of the movie. But you still get some good scares in that. You get some fucking fantastic performances across the board. Every
Yeah.
single one of the losers absolutely kills it. Especially who plays Beverly again? Why don't I have the cast up?
Sophia Lillis.
Yeah, Sophia Lillis absolutely kills it as far
Yeah.
as the losers. Bill Skarsgård is 4 minutes of dialogue in the whole movie and is still incredibly memorable.
Yeah.
He Hannibal Lecters that shit in this movie. And even like Henry Bowers, Nick Hamilton fucking kills it as Henry Bowers, and he's such a small-ish role in this movie. Yeah, great performances across the board. Coming off freshly off the book, barely anything in the book that's in the movie. It's it strays a lot, but I think with all good book adaptations, if you want just a straight across the board, word for word recreation of the book, just read the book. Like it's, I don't know, it's still there. Nothing changed.
Yeah.
And so I like kind of adaptations that twist it, but they keep the heart of the story. And I think the heart of this story is there. It's a story about friendship and love overcoming this ancient megaverse monster that feeds on this town. And I like that. I think they did a good job with it. I give it a 7.3 out of 10.
Nice.
It's a real fun movie. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think the acting is probably the best part about this movie. Like you, the standouts for me were Bill and Sophia Lillis. I love Finn Wolfhard as well as Richie, and I think Jack Dylan Grazer has like a lot of heavy lifting to do because his dialogue is so dense, and he gets through it, and it feels like he gets through it really really fast. He talks real fast, and it feels like authentic. Like it doesn't feel like he's just saying the lines super fast. Like it feels like, okay, this guy's really in his element here. And yeah, like I don't mind the structure and the pacing that much because I appreciate that there's a wide variety of scares and that each of the scares are have like a different rhythm to them. And so that's why the movie, because it's been like probably a year and a half since I last saw it, and it scared me. Like it was still good. Like I cared about these kids so much that like I still kind of jumped at some scenes. I think there's great uses of the locations and the sets. I think that really informed the acting performances, and I think that's why the kids were so good in this movie, is because they could see and touch and feel and smell everything. I think that there are some really beautiful shots in the movie that are terrifying and but also like really nice. Like I think of the shot of them holding hands at the end and the camera's kind of panning and you finally get Eddie's arm and it's got the loser that's turned into Lover, and you can see and you can see Bev and Bill in the background out of focus. I love that shot so much. It's one of my favorite. I think for me where the movie drops the ball is with Mike. Because he's
just gone for most of it.
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense because memory and history is such a big theme in it. I'm sure it's even bigger in the book.
And he's like the gatekeeper of it in the book. Like he's the one who has all the plans pretty much and finds it out.
Yeah, he is the Losers Club historian, so it makes zero sense to cut that out of this movie. And the history of Derry is so key to the story. His connection through his father and his grandfather should be something that I think that the movie should have like at least given like 10 more pages to. And I've seen the deleted scenes. Like it wasn't deleted from the movie; it was deleted from the script. But I was kind of I watched this movie opening night Thursday night because I was really hotly anticipating it since like 2012. Because there was news about it that like Cary Fukunaga, the director of True Detective season 1, was handling it, and I was like, okay, awesome, cool. And Will Poulter was gonna be Pennywise. And yeah. And apparently like he beat out like really heavy hitter actors because he was just that good in the audition.
Okay.
And yeah, so I was really excited. I was following the movie for years and like waiting for news and stuff. And apparently Cary Fukunaga departed like literally 8 weeks before shooting because of creative differences with the studio. And so I'll get into it more a little bit later, but like I think this is a technical masterpiece. I think most of my issues are with the writing. So that's why I gave it a 7.7.
All right. Yeah, we're pretty much in agreement there too. Mike was a big disappointment. Also, Bill. I like Bill better in the books because he's like the leader, and all of them look up to him. And then in this, he's kind of like this equal. And I think they need that groundedness to like just have the hierarchy in the group, if that means anything. And he does take charge. He still has that role. They just don't quite hit it as hard. But I think if they did that and they did Mike a little more justice, I think it would have been fantastic. Honestly, I could have watched 3 hours of this movie. Let's see the runtime here.
Can I guess it?
Sure, go for it.
Let's see, 135 minutes.
2 hours 15. So
that's it.
Yeah. Hey, that's fucking spot on. Yeah, I like that's a pretty lengthy horror movie, especially for kind of a pop horror movie like this is. But it doesn't feel like it at all. It goes by incredibly quickly. And so I could have been here for another 45 minutes to flesh out Mike, flesh out kind of Derry's history, and really sink our teeth into this friendship. Even more Bowers. Like I'm afraid of Bowers in the scenes that he's in, but like I'm not afraid of him just showing up like I am it. And I kind of want that out of it. But still, you get great scares. The visuals of this movie are gorgeous and absolutely kill it. Even like the leper, who looks a little tacky and over the top, but the shapeshifter's taken like on what the child is most afraid of, and so of course it's going to be like way too much. And I like that. I think it stays true to the heart of the source material, and it stays true to the heart of the movie. But you get stunning visuals like that, like right after the leper, Pennywise holding the pyramid of balloons and then them all like popping and he's gone. Like that shit's fucking fantastic. It's terrifying. It's so good. And so you get a lot of good visuals like this. And even the CGI is fantastic with like him Pennywise opening his mouth to show the deadlights in his throat. Like that shit's super well done. Like you wouldn't expect it for a movie that kind of relies on practicals quite a bit. The CGI is also fantastic. Even Pennywise stretching out of Georgie's limp body on the floor is terrifying.
So good. So good.
So you get a lot of great scares and a lot of great characters in it. What did you think of Bill Skarsgård's performance? I know you mentioned that you were a fan. What about it kind of grabbed you?
I've never read the book, but from what I understand, he in the book he transforms into movie monsters, right? That the kids have seen.
Yeah, like they just finished watching like American Werewolf in London or something, and he
Okay.
like turns into a werewolf for a lot of it and like stuff like that too.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think this movie absolutely nailed it, writing Pennywise as a stand-in for all real world monsters. Not
Mhm.
move. Not, that's where they kind of depart from the book, but I think that's kind of the strength of this depiction of Pennywise is he is everything that we fear about the real world,
Yeah.
and or he can
I
be
mean,
everything that we fear.
that is kind of accurate to the book too, because in it they talk about how he controls Henry Bowers, and like
Oh, okay.
Henry's like a vessel for him,
Yeah.
and like anything that goes wrong in Derry basically is because of it.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, because in the Cary Fukunaga script, they flash back to Beverly's dad, and he says that it spares his life as a child because he knows in the future he's gonna molest Beverly.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
it's
oh
fucked.
shit, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Bill Skarsgård absolutely killed it. I think every physical tool that he has is used to make it as scary as possible. I was watching the behind the scenes, and he was saying that he was 6'4" in real life. He's young. He was 25 years old when he played this part, so so he did most of his stunts and most of his dancing, most of his own dancing. He can actually make his left eye drift because he has a lazy eye.
Oh,
So
really?
he did, yeah. So he did. So when they were doing the scene with the first scene with Eddie, which was his encounter with Eddie is the first scene that he filmed on the set, and the first time the kids ever saw him in costume. And Andy Muschietti, the director, was like, "Hey, we want to make your eyes like digitally move to the left, like a little digitally drift off a bit." And he's like, "Oh, like this?" And he just did it. It's like, "Oh, okay, cool," which is great. And then he can do the weird thing that he does with his lips. He can do that just by flexing his lips a certain way.
Damn.
He naturally has a lot of drool, and Andy Muschietti
Yeah, I was gonna
was
say,
like,
does he just drool all the time too?
all the drool is real. It's not water. Yeah, this is one of those godsend performances that you get once in a lifetime, and I think it's
Yeah.
Film historians are going to look at it as one of the best villains in cinema.
Yeah. I agree.
I love that they mentioned in the 1990 miniseries that Pennywise is its favorite form. And you can tell that it is like having fun being a sick, sadistic clown. And I think the emotional distance between him and the other actors and him and the crew made it feel real. He didn't, the director kept the costume a secret, kept Bill's makeup a secret from all the kid actors until they had that first scene with him. And
That's
I think
awesome.
I think it's just generally one of the best monster designs ever.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. It's tough saying that because it's only like 4 years old. But I think it's true. I think he gives a fucking incredible performance. He carries it over into chapter 2 too. Absolutely kills it. We were talking about that a little before we started recording. I think he's even better in that one, and that's crazy to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic. You mentioned the design. There's one scene where he doesn't have the makeup on, and he still has like the scars that like kind of come down his face like that, and it's fucking fantastic. Like just the small details of that are great, and that stays true throughout the whole movie. A lot of the like connections to the book are small details like that. Where like in 20 minutes in or something, when they're riding bikes, and I think Ben is watching from the library, which also fucking great scene in the library, by the way.
So good.
Bill shouts "Hi ho, silver away," which he does throughout the entire book too much. There's a turtle that like bites Richie on the foot when they're in the Barrens, which is the whole thing in the book is the fucking turtle. And so like they kind of have little nods to the book, which was cool.
Yeah.
But the small details of this movie are fantastic throughout.
Yeah.
What about the? Oh, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've never read the book, but I did see the 1990 movie or miniseries before this, and before I watched this the first time, and I did notice that they had they didn't have that many Easter eggs to it, but they did have in the clown room with Richie's scare. They had the Tim Curry version of Pennywise as a puppet, which I thought was nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fucking badass. I like that. Yeah, I'm trying to remember all of the losers like fear because they all have like one specific fear that it takes the form of. Eddie's is the leper. I think
Yeah.
Richie's is the werewolf in the book, but the clown in the movie, which I like. I'm fine with that switch.
Yeah.
I can't really remember the others though. Bev's is like her father, but I think she had a monster as well. But it does take the shape of her father and like controls her father the way it
Yeah.
controls Henry. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. I don't know.
What was Stan's in the book?
Stan's? Fuck, I'm just gonna Google it. This shit's gonna bug me if I don't. I don't know why I can't remember.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I can talk a bit about the movie Stan, because I think next to Mike, he's the weakest written character. I think in the Losers Club. I think the kid who plays him is great. What's his name? Wyatt Oleff. Wyatt Oleff plays Stanley, and his fear is the most vague out of all of them, I think. And I think that's why the woman in the painting is really not like it's cool and it looks nice, but for me, I didn't really feel like it connected to the rest of the story, like the way Mike's did, or the way Bill's did, or the way Bev's did. The earlier drafts were like a lot more sexual, and I think that might be why why that director had to leave the project, or why that director left the project, because there was a bunch of the studio wanted to make something more mainstream and he did not, so Stanley's scare was going to be similar to the room 237 old woman in The Shining. It was going to be similar to that, but the studio was like, I don't like that. And I think that's one of the weaknesses in the writing of the movie too, is like they have a little bit of those psychosexual fears. They have a little bit of those fears related to racism through Mike. But all of that abuse is kind of, it's not that it's half-assed. It's just that it doesn't hit you hard enough. And like, when you kind of take half measures with topics that are that heavy, I think that that's worse than showing it, you know? Like, I'm not saying the movie needs Henry to say the N-word, you know, but toning down racism isn't the way to go either. And, and sexuality is scary for a lot of children. So it's weird that the movie doesn't take it as seriously as the other fears in here. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That was kind of my thing going into this newer watch.
Yeah. And I think Stan is kind of underwritten in the book too.
Oh, really?
He's the only one that doesn't come back as an adult, which is right in the movie in chapter 2. But yeah, they don't really give him, like, I was scrolling through, his first encounter with it is like a voice and then just a clown. But they didn't have to underwrite Mike and the racism thing so hard too. Like, Mike's biggest fear is a giant bird, which is hilarious and cool. But like, they mentioned the stuff with the black spot, but like Derry has its own independent branch of the KKK and shit. Like, it's a crazy racist town, and I don't know. It would have been cool if they had a bit more of that. They tease it, but like Henry Bowers murders his dog because he's black. Like, Put
Yeah.
that shit in, and people will know it's it's fucking real.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's such an easy thing to kind of sprinkle in throughout the movie, but I think kind of underwriting Mike so hard kind of takes away from it for sure.
Yeah.
Who's left in the losers? Beverly. We can talk about Bev, our girl. She's fantastic. Lilith absolutely kills it in this. I think she's one of the characters that's probably closest to the book, in that, like, her father's abuse and shit like that. They could have leaned into it a little more, but that's hard to watch. So I don't know. I think they did it enough to know that she's getting abused. They don't quite have the sexual side to it, but I'm okay with without watching that.
I guess, but like what? Like we see kids get eaten and dismembered.
Yeah.
Why is that
That's
not
true.
okay to show versus?
And
the
you
other
could
thing?
do like even like verbal or kind of like hint harder at the harassment instead of just straight showing
Yeah.
showing assault. But yeah, I still think that they get that relationship across even in the very short runtime that her father's there.
Yeah, that's true.
He's barely in it, and Pennywise takes the shape of it, so we kind of clue in that it fucking haunts her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they do a good justice to her. She's a fucking badass, and she is in the movie. Example, she takes advantage of the pedophilic pharmacist so the losers can steal shit, and it's hilarious, and she's clever as fuck. It's very uncomfortable to watch, but
Yeah.
but it's great, and it's cool. What'd you think of Bev though?
Dude, I remember in that Thursday super late night showing where the pharmacist was like, "And you look like Lois Lane," and the entire theater went like, the entire theater was like, ah.
Literally the worst possible response to that.
Yeah, he's all sweaty and gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. She's even stronger as an actor now. She recently did Sharp Objects where she wasn't in it that much, but she was great playing a young Amy Adams. Yeah. Bev is an interesting character, right? Because I do wish that the things with her dad made it were scarier. They don't have to be graphic, but there's ways to make it, to hit that theme harder.
Yeah.
I like that, from the first frame, you're rooting for her. Same with the other losers, but especially her because she's such an underdog with the rest of not just with all the guys at school, but with all the girls.
Yeah.
She's completely rejected by every single person in her life except for Ben. And I really appreciate that about it. I love the little moments that she has with Ben that foreshadow their relationship later on. Like I knew that they were changing it to take place in the 80s, but I had no idea that they were going to include New Kids on the Block in the movie and like even go to the soundtrack a little bit. Like I thought that was such a great moment of like just showing childhood, like in the happy moments with her. She is the heart of the Losers Club and the light, the guiding light. And so, I think they really did a good job showing that in that character, especially when they're in the group as a whole. Yeah.
That might be the funniest joke in the movie for me is when they're all in Ben's room and she just opens the door and the soundtrack starts playing and then she just closes it smiling at him.
Yeah.
It's fantastic fucking bit. And it's a
They
great
cut
moment.
to close-ups of the band.
Yeah.
Great.
It's just so good.
Yeah.
You need stuff like that to like buy into their friendship and how like much they care about each other.
Yes.
And I think she is a big cause of that. Because they're also all fucking in love with her, which is hilarious. It's such a small kid thing to do, to all fall in love with the one girl in your friend group. Um, and I think
Right.
they capture that pretty well as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
We could talk Ben. Ben, I'm hit or miss on in the movie compared to the book. I like him. I think he's a fantastic character in the movie.
Yes.
Um, he's kind of the brains of the group, at least in the book. Here he's a little less so. Bill kind of takes over that role. Um, but he's such a fun, lovable dude that I can't help but to do it. I am disappointed they didn't call him Haystack like they do in the book the whole time. He doesn't quite get a nickname.
Yeah.
Um, but it's fine. I still like his portrayal in the movie. What do you think?
I agree. I think Jeremy Ray Taylor killed it. Like the rest of the Losers Club. You, I think it's kind of weird that he got like his stomach slashed by Pennywise, and they just don't address it. They talk about Eddie's broken arm for sure, but because it
Yeah,
looks gross. But like there's like 4 lacerations on this kid's torso. Like you got to take care of that.
yeah,
But other than that, I think that it was a great character. I remember, curling up into a ball every time I watched it when Henry starts carving his name in his stomach. I thought that was
Mhm.
incredibly sadistic and really disturbing. And I, yeah, those moments are only as good as the victim's acting is, and
Yeah.
I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, I wrote a note for my Shining notes that kind of applied to this movie too, especially Georgie's death. But I was like, a lot of horror relies on how well their child actor can shake around on the floor.
Yeah, yeah, dude. Whoever that kid who played Georgie was a freaking genius, dude. When
Yeah,
he's a puppet, when he's shaking on the ground, even when he dies, like I was like, oh my god, this kid has it.
yeah, he absolutely killed it. Apparently, he wasn't even afraid of Bill as Pennywise, like they were joking around on set and shit,
That's good.
which kind of makes it even better. You don't want to traumatize your actors. We're looking at you, Kubrick.
Yeah,
Um, who's left in the Losers Club? Just Bill and
Bill,
Richie.
and Richie, and Eddie.
Yeah.
We've barely talked about Eddie.
Oh, true. We can start Eddie. He's fine. He's like, I don't know. He's kind of underwritten too, but he's not a character that I'm like crazy about either. He gets great scares, which is rad. You get to see his relationship with his mom, which is super cool too. He actually has a pretty cool relationship with a pharmacist in the book. Like in the book, he doesn't even have asthma, but his mom convinces him he does.
Yeah.
And the pharmacist is like, "Nah, it's just a placebo this whole time. Like, get your head out of your ass, kid." Uh, so it would have been cool to see that tension with his mom in the movie. But I think he's great. He's a great addition to the Losers Club. The actor who plays him did a fantastic job as well. Mr. Jack Dylan Grazer. He did great too. Yeah, I like him. I think he's a worthy addition.
Yeah, I think the highlight of this character is his chemistry with Richie, with Finn
Yeah.
Wolfhard. The relationship those two have is key to not just this movie but the following movie. That I don't think it's in is Richie gay in the book?
No.
Okay, yeah. So they changed that for the movie, but I think that change works. The fact that he was carrying a torch for Eddie
Hmm.
since childhood. I think that seeing that in chapter 2 was believable because of how great they were as a duo in here and how much they butted heads. The way boys talk shit to each other is like it felt authentic. There was that. Do you share a bathroom with your mom? Yeah. Then you probably have crabs. Yeah, that's so good. It's so good, and I love the two of them, and being the kind of fast talking roasters in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, their dynamic is fantastic, and their chemistry as actors was also amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they absolutely killed it. And I do like the change to Richie being gay as well. I think because homophobia is bleeding through the book, start to finish. Like, I think the first scene of the book is the first scene of the second movie where the gay couple gets like assaulted and then
Oh,
one
wow.
gets murdered. And so like right off the bat, homophobia just breathes in Derry. And so I like the change. I think it kind of nods to that a bit more, which
Yeah.
is great. Richie's fantastic. Finn Wolfhard's obviously a gem. We're both fans, so we're gonna praise him.
Yeah.
He doesn't do as many character voices in the movie, which is such a big thing for him in the book. He's actually a radio DJ when he grows up instead of a stand-up, and all he does is voices the entire time.
That's great.
Some of which are very racist. Like he does his Pancho Vanilla voice when he's in the sewer has something on the stick, and he's like, "It doesn't look like poo poo to me, senor." He does that one, and then he has one called N-word Jim, which is very bad. It's very bad. I'm glad that they cut that one because it was very uncomfortable to listen to.
You did the audiobook?
Yeah. Because I would just be editing, and that's why I would have the audiobook going.
Yeah.
And it was rough. But it's a great character in here. He's kind of the comic relief of the movie and of the losers, but one that goes over the top very often. And I think they absolutely captured everything I like about him in the book here.
Yeah. I'm a big Stranger Things fan. I've seen every season multiple times, and I think Finn Wolfhard has one of the coolest names of all time. It's so perfect. It's so perfect. I want to name my kid Finn Wolfhard on canon. Because then his initials would be Fwa. And that's not good.
I think it's great.
I even was watching like the interviews before season 3 of Stranger Things, and they were saying like, yeah, when Finn came back, he kept cursing. He was cursing, so he was so nice when he left. And then, I love that. I love little kids dropping F-bombs. It's my favorite thing about Super 8. It's my favorite thing about Stand By Me. It's my favorite thing about this movie. And I think Richie has the best line, my favorite quote, which was, "Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole." And he swings that. It's such a great character arc climax for him to finally try to finally face his fear of clowns and take a swing at Pennywise to save Bill. I thought that was so touching, and so like I just get chills every time I watch it. It's so badass. It's so cool. And I'm probably going to take that audio bite and add it to our Jaredcast intro because I like it so much.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And then Big Bill, Stuttering Bill.
Yes.
They stay pretty true to him, and I think he's a fantastic character. You feel his pain and his loss. It kind of informs pretty much everything he does in the situation against it. They capture his wit and his charm, but also his emotional side, and how he's kind of the most mature of the group because of what he's been through. And the actor who plays him, what's his fucking name? Jaden Martell, absolutely kills it. He's one of the better performances as well. He was a standout for me. Just fantastic all around.
Yeah. Jaden Martell is also great in a movie called Knives Out, which I highly recommend. He plays an armchair Nazi. It's great. Yeah, I this movie is super violent. It's super scary, but it has a really low body count. It's like it's 3 people and 2 sheep. That's how many people. Like it's a pretty low body count for a movie. But the sense of danger is so palpable on every viewing, because Jaden Martell as Bill, you see everything through his perspective, and he sells it so well. Every single swing that he takes is an underdog swing up until the end. I think what makes Bill such a great hero is his refusal to be indifferent to the threat of Pennywise. That's the main reason why Pennywise has been able to maintain this curse for so long, is because there's this kind of unspoken agreement between him and the adults that, like, okay, you can take the kid if you let everyone else live. And I think that makes Richie's choice to take a swing at Pennywise even better, like the fact that he doesn't give in to that threat. But for Bill, I think all his insecurities, all his fears feel really, really real. And I think one of the most pervasive themes across Stephen King stories. I've seen a lot of Stephen King adaptations. I've only read one Stephen King book, but most of the ones that I've seen have this idea that you hold that faith in goodness, faith in your friends and the people who care about you will win against evil, and you need that in a character like Bill, and you need that and you need someone who sincerely feels that way as a performer. And I think, it was nailed.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we can just go straight into favorite scenes. We're already almost an hour into this bitch, and we've got one of the biggest and influential horror movies of all time coming up.
Yeah.
What were some of your favorites?
I love the first showdown with Pennywise. The speech by Bill leading up into walking into the house. Like, I'm not going to pretend that this is okay anymore. Pennywise has great chemistry with Eddie in the scene when he's just straight up mocking him, and it's really dark and really gross and really scary, and I appreciate it a lot. There's great special effects, not just in the twisting out of the refrigerator, but when Bev impales him with the spike, it looks amazing. Yeah. And there's this, and even before that particular room, there's a sense of desperation in every room inside that house. So I think it's a really well structured sequence, and I love the face lock technique that they use in the cinematography. It's really, really interesting, especially on such wide lenses. Like it's disconcerting,
it's unsettling as hell.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's everything that I love about the movies in that sequence.
Yeah, I also really love the first, pretty much the first scene, Georgie's death. And like the build up to it, like showing they establish Bill and Georgie's relationship immediately and do it super effectively, and so I really appreciate that. And the whole face off with Georgie and Pennywise trying to like lure him when he's like, Georgie, meet Pennywise. I'm like, oh god, fuck you, get out of here. That part's fantastic, even like down to the small details of like the adult seeing this child like looking into a drain and like thinking nothing of it because it has such a hold on the town, is great. It's just a fantastic scene, super well executed. and sets the pace for the entire movie perfectly. So that Ben's library scene with like the book turning the pages and it zooming in on the child's head in the tree is fantastic. And then everything after they enter the house is one that I wrote down. Like the last 45 minutes of the film is so much fun, so many good scares and spooks, and it's just super well executed. I love it. I think it's a real fun time.
Yeah, I wrote down a lot of those. I also wrote down Pennywise killing Patrick. Like, even though I don't care about that character, it's such a good scare that I brace for it. Like,
Yeah.
with the balloon and him going like, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And but my favorite like overall scare, I think, is the projector. I think that one was it's just so cool visually, and it's like I climbed up into my chair in the theater.
I was climbing up in my chair even during the trailer when that scene was in. I was like,
Yeah.
fuck.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I love it. And I agree. Killing Georgie was absolutely devastating. Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick's death is super well done. In the book, Beverly like kind of sees it happen. It happens in the Barrens, and she's like walking home and she sees Patrick and she's like scared of him because he's a bully.
Yeah.
And it pretty much does the same thing with like the balloons and everything. And then she sees like a trail of blood and she like follows it to like try to save him, and then like ultimately doesn't and like runs away, and it's like a guilt thing for him. And it's super like spooky just having her watch.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I kind of wish that like one of them saw it, but the way it's done is fantastic. It's a great scene.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks for joining me on this adventure.
Hell yeah. Thank you. Thank you for picking it, because I've been meaning to rewatch both of them.
Yeah, of course.
Shall we move on to The Shining?
No, because before we do,
Cool.
Bad reviews.
yeah, Jared reads poorly written reviews of movies that we're watching because it's funny and it makes him laugh and stuff. This one comes from Cabal-19, saying, I couldn't even watch the whole thing. Whole spelled HOLE, which immediately is why I wanted to.
Good.
Not that it's one of those bad grammar ones. Most of it's all lowercase and like all the U's are spelled with just a U and stuff. But with a title like that, I'm not going to not pick it. I gave it a 1 out of 10. Surprise, surprise. Well, yes, you can all start now. Quote, he didn't even watch the whole movie and tells us how awful it is. That's because I couldn't bear it anymore. The woman is so plain ugly that I couldn't watch more than 45 minutes. She looks so disfigured. How can you hire somebody like this as an actor? Probably that's the reason they tagged this movie as an horror. Really, I can't find another reason. You see lots more awful stuff nowadays in the news. I do like other Kubrick films. I love Nicholson, not in this one. And I have enjoyed some of King's books. Should this been the perfect combination, or should have been the perfect combination, but it isn't. This is not even interesting to watch just to see what all the fuzz is about. Or if you don't have anything else to watch, it's just a waste of time. An unbelievably high rating? Well, this is the really creepy thing. Makes you wonder about our world and the people in it.
Dang.
Yeah, Shelley Duvall out here just catching stray bullets.
I know. That was so mean.
It's so unnecessary. Half the review is just like talking shit on her.
You didn't even get to the good parts of it, man. Oh,
I know.
Yeah, this whole movie shaped the whole 80s and I think stands on its own to this day.
Yep.
I love The Shining. You can feel its fingerprints on movies coming out even today. The music
Even it, like
yeah,
Skarsgård said that he was channeling Nicholson's performance in this for part of his inspiration for Pennywise.
yeah, and um, the music in it copies this. The
Yeah.
music is pretty. In I forgot to say about it, but I thought the music was pretty mid, but it's okay. For this, I really like it. I think it works really really well. And I think though it's a Stephen King adaptation, I appreciate that it feels original. I appreciate that it's authentic to itself as a film. There's three incredible performances that stand as some of the best performances in horror. Um, it's one of the first times we've seen a movie star, like a legit movie star, Jack Nicholson, being the lead in an art house horror.
Yeah.
And the movie was completely written on the fly and shot in chronological order. So it took over a year to produce. But for a movie that's written kind of with spontaneity, I think it still feels really tight. It still feels really tightly structured. I think the only thing I don't like about it is that it's just not scary to me. But it is
Yeah.
very, very, yeah.
When one of the biggest scares is a title card saying Tuesday popping up on the screen.
Yeah. But even then, the movie is so mesmerizing. It's so hypnotic. It's like that I don't really mind that much. I love that it's I just love the vibe of it. I think it's a great movie to watch over and over and over again, even though I've only seen it twice. But I also love that it's super relevant today, because the idea of isolation and claustrophobia and that restlessness of being in lockdown for us, I think this movie made it. I think going through that for the past year and change made this movie more emotionally resonant. I think all of these terrible, horrible images and sounds heighten the reunion and escape of Wendy and Danny. I don't think the movie is as cold and as unfeeling as everybody says it is. And I could talk about the tension between Stephen King later, but a lot of Kubrick's critics, myself included, have talked about his work being distant, emotionally distant from other people. And but for this movie, I actually I think that's very valuable. I think that's part of what makes the movie great. And so a lot of the things that I said about 2001 are things that I liked about this movie, and I appreciate it a lot. I gave it a 9.
Yeah. I absolutely love this movie. This might be like my 10th watch or something. I'm a fiend, but yeah, it's fantastic. It's the fucking Shining. Like you said, it's one of the most influential. You see its fingerprints in like some of the best horror movies coming out today, like The Witch, Hereditary, owe a lot to this movie for laying the groundwork on any slow burn horror.
Even the titles in The
It's
Conjuring.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It all comes back to Kubrick. It's obviously going to be shot incredibly well because he's like an insane person about that kind of thing. The sound design is fucking fantastic. Like Danny riding a tricycle through the hallway of the hotel, and the sound alone is like unsettling. Just the way it changes pattern on the carpet and hardwood, like
Yeah.
it's just small details like that make my bones chill watching this. You're
Yeah.
not going to get a lot of like jump scares or super scary moments, but you'll feel unsettled pretty much the whole time. And I think that is it's also kind of how Stephen King writes from what I've seen. my limited knowledge of Stephen King, it's it's always like kind of long and meandering, and it strays away from the main story to kind of flesh out the universe a lot. And I think you get that in this movie. It is a long, slow, meandering movie, but you'll feel awkward and kind of disturbed and unsettled the whole time. And I think that that's just a sign of a masterpiece in adaptation. The acting's fantastic. It's weird. It's not afraid to get kind of out there. I could have done without the furry shot. I don't know what that's about. Still confused about that one. But it just, if you can do weird art house shit like this and still have it be kind of mainstream and like fit in the world of the movie, you did something right. And it's just a fantastic execution overall, pun intended. And I'll give it a 9.1.
Nice.
Yeah.
A little more than me.
I'm a bigger fan. Fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The editing, the cinematography, and the blocking are all very masterful. This is one of the earliest uses of Steadicam, one of the first movies to really master it, before Alton Brown started doing it. Did you know about that?
No, I didn't.
Like like before he was a famous cook, he pioneered the use of Steadicam in music videos. Like,
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was great. But anyway, sorry. This movie was kind of visually and sonically influenced by Eraserhead, 1977. So, Kubrick even had a lot of the crew watch the movie, and so I think that's why they're so unafraid of the surreal and unafraid of the absurd, because to this day people don't understand Eraserhead, and nobody ever will. And I think that's why they even kept the weird dog / bear costume. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I think it's that, that's that last little sprinkle of paprika on the potato salad. It makes sense for this movie, even though it doesn't make sense. There's kind of a long history of tension between this film and Stephen King's original story. The vibe kind of runs contrary to it. Oddly enough, even though he's one of the harshest critics against this movie, I think King wrote one of the best reviews. He said, like, my book ends with the hotel burning and his ends up with the hotel freezing, and that's the essence of each story. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Like, but I think it also revels in the dark absurdities and the terror found throughout King's bibliography. Like Stephen King's work, it's unafraid to tackle really dark sexual themes and really dark violent themes. And I think if the movie has any baked in flaws besides like my personal, I just don't get scared, like, it's that it kind of alienates the hardcore Stephen King fans who may see it as a bad adaptation. But on the other hand, like, Stephen King gave him free reign to do whatever he wanted. Like, he got that permission. And so I think that I love that this movie is so unique unto itself, and so and it feels original, even though so many people have ripped it off since. Yeah. Shall we talk about characters first, or themes first, or what do you want to do?
Your movie, your lead. I'm just a little follower.
Yeah. I guess we could talk about Dick first. He's the one to first recognize Danny's gift. He's the only one to recognize Danny's gift and see it as a beautiful thing. And I think that's one of the great things about The Shining, is that the supernatural isn't necessarily bad or necessarily good. It's a reflection of Dick compares The Shining to a photograph, and that's kind of his role in the story, is to provide that foundation for the symbolism in the movie. What did you think? But overall, as a character, what did you think about him?
I love him. I think there's not a lot of characters in this movie. Like there's like 5 or something.
Yeah.
But he's a very warranted one. On my first like few watches, probably too young, I was like real confused about what The Shine was and what The Shining is. And you need Dick there to kind of guide you to what The Shine is and what that means. The same way he guides Danny. He's like, hey, look, kid, you're not going to really understand this yet. You got powers. So does this hotel. They're kind of connected. Deal with it. And so he offers the exposition the audience needs, but doesn't like ham fist it, because he is explaining stuff to a child and like kind of communicating with that child, and so we get it through Danny's eyes because of Dick. And he's like a loving, caring dude, super nice and warm presence every time he's on screen. Even when he's like real creepy and was like, "You want some ice cream, Danny?" It's still like warm and welcoming. And I think he's a fantastic side character to have here.
Yeah, and he plays this a really key role in Danny's life, being a positive father figure. You know, Jack hugs and kisses Danny, but also abuses him and neglects him, and so this is it's very, very. I think that contrast is needed so that you understand just how bad it is in the Torrance home, and you see that contrast between the way Dick treats Danny versus the way Jack treats Danny. I love that he doesn't he speaks plainly to him. Like he treats him like he can tell how gifted and how intelligent Danny is. He doesn't treat him like a baby. And he says, you know, the only thing he said, don't go into room 237. But everything else is like, you have a gift, you are special, and you can use that. And I really like that about that character. And I think we can go from there to Danny. What did you think about him?
He's great. I can't remember the actor's name, but he absolutely fucking kills it.
Isn't it
I think.
Also Danny?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Duh. Yeah, he kind of carries the horror of this movie on his back. Because the scariest thing about it is not only when Tony takes over and he's like screaming red rum and shit, but also like just seeing his reaction to the horrors that have happened in the hotel and what the hotel is like showing him. It's great. And he pulls it off incredibly well. Like him like drooling and kind of shaking whenever bad shit happens is horrifying. Like it's super disturbing to see. He kind of I mentioned when we were talking about Dick that like we kind of see the movie through Danny's eyes, and I don't think that changes when talking about Danny specifically, because we kind of do. We see the horrors that Danny sees, not what just what Shelley Duvall sees. We see it through his perspective, and it is an incredible performance that allows us to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I just pulled up the names. Scatman Crothers plays Dick, and Danny Lloyd plays Danny Torrance.
Gotcha. Weird that it's Danny and Jack playing Danny and Jack.
Yeah, it's weird. One of the best. I agree. One of the best child performances of all time. It really is the gold standard, and I think children or child performers, I think they really excel when they are given a good environment to just work their magic, and I think that absolutely works super well with the set designs and the massive soundstage sets that they had for the Overlook. I know Kubrick was also very protective of him and didn't even tell him that he was in a horror movie. He just kind of he just kind of played games with him and didn't show Danny Lloyd the movie until like 11 years later. But yeah, you know, this movie is it's not only about addiction and violence, but those are kind of the biggest themes, I think. And I think Danny's presence in the film and the way Danny's character ends in the film says that you can use your gifts and your intelligence to break that cycle of violence and to break that cycle of addiction. And I haven't seen Dr. Sleep. I've heard that it goes into that more, but as Danny becomes an adult. But you know, going back to the supernatural, like it's reflected. The supernatural world is reflected in the natural world accordingly. So everything good, like Tony helping him, like that translates to real life. Like Tony ends up really saving their lives, and then you know, and then accordingly, you know, vice versa with the evil side of the supernatural. And yeah, I think I agree. I think the character is amazing. And I also you know, he doesn't have that many scenes with Wendy, but he does. But the scenes that they have together are really genuine. They're really nice. Wendy really feels like his mother.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what did you think of Wendy's arc? What did you think of Shelley Duvall's performance?
I like it. I think Wendy is the biggest victim of this movie, obviously, and I think she plays it super well. Most of her lines in it are kind of screaming and floundering around, but she does a fucking fantastic job at it. She does feel like a mother to Danny. Like if you told me that they were actually mother and son, I wouldn't even bat an eye. Like if somehow Danny Lloyd and Shelley Duvall were related. Yeah, she's fantastic. She plays the wife that's trying to make her family have like the best life possible, despite her abusive husband role super well. Her like back and forth with Jack is heartbreaking because you feel for her. You really resonate with like she's just trying her best to like make this work, and it's fantastic. It's like she absolutely kills it, and she's a lovable character who you like genuinely care for and don't want to see harmed. And so when the climax of the film comes, it hits even harder because you want her to succeed so bad.
Definitely. Being on the receiving end of all that abuse and all that violence and seeing the toll that it takes in her face, in her hair, in her body, it feels realistic. And I think that's, you know, kind of where the depiction of abuse in It 2017 fails, is that it, you know, this movie is not afraid to show us that, yeah, this kind of living this way for years will destroy a person and will turn them into you know, it won't make them stronger. Like, I see that in her definitely. And I, you know, it's such a bummer the way that this performance was received initially, because, you know, in my opinion, she should have been nominated for an Oscar, but she was nominated for a Razzie.
Which is insane.
It's so insane. And, like, you know, even Stephen King said that the depiction of Wendy was misogynistic because his Wendy was a former cheerleader, so she was strong and cool-headed. But like, why would that character stay with Jack?
Yeah.
You know, this person wouldn't stay with Jack unless they depended on him and depended on that family unit. And so I think it is believable. I think it makes the movie more believable. I know I kind of talked shit about Kubrick in the way that him and Shelley Duvall were behind the scenes. I did that in the fall, and but in February there was an article that came out with a really, really long interview by Shelley Duvall, February of this year, where she talks about the way that Dr. Phil portrayed her experience, and Dr. Phil kind of showed her to be more mentally ill, or showed her to be mentally ill, and she was not. And she said, and I think a lot of the controversy about the way Kubrick treated her, I think it was kind of blown out of proportion. I think so. Even though I stand by saying that a director shouldn't treat their actors that way, I don't think that's the whole truth of what was going on behind the scenes of this movie. In fact, Shelley Duvall actually says that Kubrick helped her, and Kubrick, the performance was hard because the part was hard, and so it was necessary. And she said she would never do it again, but she would. I'm obviously paraphrasing for all this stuff, but she said she would never do it again, but she is glad for the entire experience. And so I appreciate that about it. Another act, Jack Nicholson also said that he struggled working with Stanley Kubrick and said it was one of the hardest parts he ever did. What do you think about his performance and the character of Jack Torrance?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because it's such a batshit insane character to play. I feel like it'd be hard to capture Jack's like slow descent into hysteria. But upon this rewatch, it's not really like a slow descent. It's just bringing something that was always there.
Yeah.
You can kind of see this in everybody's initial reactions to the hotel. Like Danny feels like a warning coming. Shelley says it's creepy, but she accepts it because it's what she loves for her family. And then Jack is all about it. He's like, this place is beautiful. Like, it's home. And he fits right in because he's a fucking maniac. And so seeing it slowly kind of bring it out of him is fantastic. From the way he starts the movie compared to how he ends, it's night and day, and that night is fucking scary. He's a terrifying anti-hero, I guess, because he's technically the protagonist, but a bad one.
Yeah, I agree. You nailed it. It's the themes of addiction and rage and the cycle of violence and the idea of a relapse. It's all beautifully portrayed by Jack Nicholson. I was watching this video essay about his acting in particular, where this guy was called him the master of rage, or the master of anger. And you look at Jack Nicholson's entire filmography, and it's true. Like, we love to compliment actors based on their range and how many different things they can do. But, and Jack Nicholson has range. Jack Nicholson has a lot of range, but I think another great quality of actors is the depth at which they're able to attack the same thing over and over and over again. And you look at the way Jack Nicholson tackles anger in A Few Good Men versus this, and it's very, very different. It's not the same Jack Nicholson. Sometimes he uses anger to cover up insecurity or fear. Sometimes he uses anger, and you see it in his body. You see it in his whole body. And there's and with Jack, like you said, there's something about the hotel that unlocks the monster that was in there already. And I love that about The Shining. He also has that great moment, which is, besides the "Here's Johnny," I think it's my favorite quote from the movie, when he's like, "Wendy, darling, light of my life, I'm not going to hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains in. I'm going to bash them right the fuck in. It's something that only Jack Nicholson could do, and this movie really fulfills all of his potential. I saw some behind the scenes, and he's like doing push-ups before, like, and jumping jacks before he swings the axe into the door, so that he looks like he's out of breath. I love that about that's such a fundamentally great performance. We can kind of go from there into symbolism in the movie. I think one of the biggest symbols that stuck out to me was mirrors, used as a duality thing. We see we get this idea of two Jacks, two Gradys, the two Grady sisters. He talks to Lloyd through a mirror. Jack talks to Lloyd through a mirror. There's two naked women, two different mazes. What did you think about this part of the movie and part of the story?
I think it's 100% necessary, and it's kind of the core of the movie, because like we said, the monster within Jack that the hotel is unleashing, pretty much every character, I guess apart from maybe Wendy, well, no, you could even make a case for Wendy, but every character has two sides to them. You've got Danny and Tony, you've got Jack and Maniac Jack, and then you've got the Wendy that loves her family and the Wendy that sees the evil in her husband. And so every character has these two sides. Even the hotel has two sides. And so I think mirrors are kind of albeit like overused at this point in cinema history of 2021, year of our Lord, but it's a necessary, and it's kind of an obvious pick that's executed incredibly well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It really plays into the chilling nature of the ending, which is that it's not that Jack was fated to repeat the same thing that the past Jack did, but it like the movie's kind of saying, like, this is what happens with addiction and with violence. Like, you're gonna even like you're gonna choose, like, if when a man is given an option, he's probably gonna choose the wrong option over and over and over and over again. And the mirror kind of plays this role in Jack's journey as coming to terms with himself. He, in the bathroom with Grady, he's the one, he makes a conscious decision to listen to, or with Grady, sorry. He makes a conscious decision to give in to the violence and follow Grady's advice. The idea of red rum being read backwards as murder, like the violence in the past and violence in the present are both together in the mirrors. And Kubrick said that Jack is a reincarnation, and that's kind of the vague explanation of the photograph at the end. Yeah. I still sort of don't get it, but it makes sense to the vibe of the movie, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, I think that a lot of that, what you were saying, ties into a line Grady has in that bathroom scene where he says, "You were the groundskeeper the whole time, like you've always been the groundskeeper." Yeah. And so I don't know if the photograph is, I mean, it's the reincarnation thing too, but it's also like, this has just been in him since birth, is to be this person that he now is fully. And so I think it's like kind of just a nod to that it was within him all along.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure about this particular interpretation of the symbol, but a lot of people speculate that it's about America as well, and America's history of violence. The movie's built on Indian burial ground, or the Overlook's built on Indian burial ground, so it's built on stolen land. Danny wears the an Apollo sweater. The colors red, white, and blue are used several times in the movie. And the paranoia and unease is generally felt throughout the movie, and that's kind of reflective of America at the time. Do you agree?
Yeah, I don't know if it was wholly intentional, but I think there's something to it regardless, because if the audience is picking up on it, there's probably at least a connection there. And I'm sure at least one person, when you were saying that, was like, oh, fuck, yeah, we all just kind of ignore violence that's been bleeding through our country from the very start. And so I think that whether it's Kubrick's intention or King's intention from the get-go, ultimately doesn't really matter. I think it's that instance is one that's like, if the audience picks up on it, it's probably just some credence to it.
Yeah, 100%. I know this is kind of the major symbol of the movie, but as someone who's seen it multiple times, like, were there any other big symbols that stuck out to you, or that you gravitate towards when you watch it?
Not really. The big ones that I put down were like the mirror stuff and kind of the duality of all the characters involved. That was kind of the biggest one. I mean, you see like themes dripping throughout the movie, like isolation, and you definitely see that in the cinematography, especially. There's a lot of kind of sweeping wide shots. Even the opening of just the lone car driving down the empty landscape roads. And so you get more themes like that rather than symbols that I was really sniffing out.
No, yeah, that's totally valid. And I think that sense of isolation is very, very well executed from because of the way they built the sets and the way they shot the sets. Which particular set pieces or places or locations in the hotel, which ones stuck out to you the most?
I think the biggest ones are, I think it's the lobby where Jack sets up his desk to just typewrite, and it's just the biggest fucking room you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, it's the echo on his typing, like everything about it just is isolatory and shows his aloneness because he's been this abusive dickwad who's driven people away. You just feel it anytime that they're in that room. And then anytime there's an intruder of that isolation, Jack immediately pushes her away. He's like, get out. When you hear typing, don't enter this room. Like, it's haunting. And it's kind of the biggest catalyst of his descent into madness. And then I think to combat that is the maze, which isn't like a big landscape, but it's isolating in that you're closed in, and I think that's pretty representative of Wendy's character.
Yeah.
She's trapped. Like, there is a way out, but she doesn't want to find it. It's not right for her. And the goal of that maze isn't to get completely through. It's to get in the middle where you're the most lost and confused. And I think that's kind of Wendy's goal. She doesn't want to get out. She's like, I'm here. I might as well get to the center of all this shit that I'm going through. And so I think that those two set pieces, being special to those characters, is super important to the film.
Hell yeah. So good, dude. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was an artist, I forget her name, but she tried to draw blueprints of the Overlook because she was such a big fan of the film. And what she found was that as a space, it doesn't make sense. There's no way that a room that big could fit in the building that the exterior shows. There are windows that shouldn't be there. There are stairs that lead to nowhere. There are doors that lead to nowhere.
Fucking Winchester House.
Yeah, it's super super weird. And the first AD when he heard about this confirmed, like, yeah, Stanley Kubrick didn't want the space to make sense, and I think that totally heightens the fear and the paranoia and the unease that not just the family feels, but all the past residents of the Overlook. The hotel was conducive to the violent urges within them, and yeah, so crazy.
It's fantastic. The production design. Oh, we mentioned it last week's episode because it made my list, but the production design on this is fucking incredible.
Yeah, it's so good. It's not fair to every other production design. The color red's really prominent in there as well. Did you have any notes about that in the production design?
Yeah. I mean, like you kind of mentioned the red, white, and blue, which I think could be a subtle nod, but something about like the bright colored carpet leading to the room. Like the only time you really pay attention to it is Danny's trek to room 237 or Jack's trek there. And so it's kind of like just like a trail of like blood, but that's kind of enticing in a way because it's so vibrant. And like the color of the hotel kind of contrasting the harsh cold outside is just kind of makes that storm look even more crazy and even more like intense. And that there really is no escape. And I think the only green we really see apart from like the opening shots is the maze, because that's kind of her escape and ultimately Danny's escape because of Wendy. It's all fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. It's also used as a foreshadow tool to Red Rum. The blood.
Yeah.
70s blood was very, very bright. It was very, very kind of like expressionistic or impressionistic.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and I think Alien and The Shining were both being produced around the same time. I think Kubrick even visited the set of Alien once. But they were both being produced at the same time, and they kind of marked this transition in horror where blood looks realistic now. It no longer looks like bright colored and crazy, which I love that look. I'm a big 70s guy, 70s film guy, so I love that look. But the blood here looks like real blood, and it's like it's real violent whether it's the killing of Dick or the Grady sisters. It's freaky, and it really marks a transition, like we said earlier, to the 80s horror. And there's also red in the bathroom, with Grady, with Butler Grady, not with Charles Grady. Forgot that there were two Gradys. The idea that the red persists, the violence persists even in private spaces is I think is very, very good. They also they also talk about they also surround the family in a bunch of red production design, and they foreshadow that when they talk about the Donner Party eating each other in the beginning. It's The Shining. It's just that good. Any other big notes on big ideas in the movie before we move into favorite scenes? Because that's all I had.
Not really. I have two kind of anecdotal ones,
I'll
or
go
I
for
guess three anecdotal ones.
Do it.
One, this is the reason my dad refuses to watch The Witch. because this movie made him too scared of twins, and he fucking hates it, and he can't do it. And so he refuses to finish The Witch because the twins in that creeped him out so much because they reminded him of this, which is hilarious. And there's also, I don't know, I haven't read a lot of Stephen King, and so I don't know, but there's so many horror writer characters in all of his books and movies.
Yeah.
Like Jack's a writer. The main character in Salem's Lot is a horror writer. I think it's Eddie grows up to be a horror writer in it. Like, it's just a very common thing, and so makes me kind of even more afraid of Stephen King as a human, and not even when he's on all of the drugs.
Well, yeah, I think that's part of why he took this so personally, was because Jack was kind of a stand-in for him when because he wrote the book while he was dealing with alcoholism, and wrote the book as kind of, do you mind if I give away the ending of the book?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So in the ending of the book, Jack does not die. He does not freeze to death. He actually gets a hold of himself when the boiler, because the hotel tries to make the boiler explode to kill all of them, and so Jack stalls the hotel in order to let Wendy, Dick, and Danny escape. And I think what Stephen King was trying to say through that character was like, yes, you can get out of this addiction, you can get out of this cycle. And what Kubrick was saying was that no, that doesn't really happen all the time. And so I think that's why King took Kubrick's treatment of the character so personally, because that character was a stand-in for him. Yeah, you mentioned that it's present in the other stories. He does that a lot. In Stand By Me, it's narrated by an author who's writing his biography. It's definitely. I think he even appears as himself in one of his stories, but I don't remember which one it was.
He has a cameo in the second It movie.
Yeah, as the pawn shop.
Not that that's the same thing at all, but yeah. And then the last one was there's a news channel, Newswatch 10, which was very close to my news channel that I work for, Newswatch 12. And it was very creepy to see.
Oh man, maybe it's foreshadowing. Stay away from any axes. Sorry.
You're good.
Shall we do favorite scenes?
I think we shall.
Cool. You want to go first or you want me?
I can go first. Most of mine are kind of basic. Like I have favorite shots that didn't quite make my favorite scenes, like the top-down view of the maze or like the opening title sequence. Both are very good. Both have their purpose, but there's not enough meat to like count it as a favorite scene in this. Yeah. I mentioned the tricycle. Pretty much anytime Danny's on a tricycle, I'm in love because of that sound design. And just the maze of hallways that he's going through is like perfect for horror cinematography, just like turning the corners and shit. It's fantastic. Dick's death is very sudden and out of nowhere, and I love it because it kind of raises the stakes for everything else. Like, oh, this was probably your only escape. Good luck now is kind of what the movie's doing to you, and I love it. It's so out of nowhere. There's not a ton of build up to it. He's not like chasing around Dick for super long. It's just right there in his face. And then obviously the axe to the bathroom door it's a classic, but it's a classic for a reason. The biggest reason for me is the way the camera like whips with the axe like perfectly. It just has such an impact. It's not even like the "here's Johnny" thing, which is great and iconic, but just the way the camera fucking whips is so good. It's so good.
I agree. Fun fact, Kubrick did that himself. for that
Oh,
particular
really?
scene. Yeah.
I remember seeing the BTS of them like moving the camera, but I didn't really take note of him doing it. That's cool.
Yeah. So those are your favorite shots or favorite scenes?
Those were a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I agree with all those. Those are all great scenes. I love the initial Overlook tour with Wendy and Jack. Them kind of saying like, "Oh, this is cool," and like going through the closet and everything was like really, really very eerie. The fact that the women who were like assistants to Ullman, they were twins as well, and I was like, oh, this is I don't like that. There's people are going up and down the stairs that lead to nowhere. Yeah, it's crazy. I love the scene in room 237 or 237 with the lady ghost. That was
that's probably the best scare of the movie.
I totally forgot about that whole thing. Like, and so watching it kind of fresh again was like, oh yeah, this was here.
Yeah.
I forgot. The one that I absolutely did not forget and cannot forget is of course the "Come Play With Us" scene. I think it's one of the best edits in the history of cinema. If you can make that list of top 5 cuts, I think that's definitely at least number 5. The discovery of Jack's manuscript with the "all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." I think it's chilling. And I remembered that one as well for my first watch, and so going to those like slow zooms of him kind of just typing, I was like, oh, he's been doing that the entire time. And I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. And the way Wendy reacts to it is like, it's so chilling. I love it.
Especially after he was so like abusively defensive about, I'm on to something here. Like, let me work. I finally have a masterpiece.
Yeah, man. It's so good. It's so good. I think my number one favorite scene though is when Jack meets Lloyd for the first time. I think it's just such a fun and interesting visually scene. Their eye lines don't match up at all. Like Lloyd is looking above Jack, and you don't really notice it until like a couple minutes in, and you're like, "What? Where's he looking?" And then they cut to the close up, and he's like this. He's doing the Kubrick stare a little bit. It marks a turning point. As soon as he takes that drink, it's over. And I love it. And I it's just so weird the way he just doesn't question it. Like as soon as he sees Lloyd, he's just like, yeah, he's in. The Overlook has him. It was a
any scene with Jack in like the past version of the hotel where he's like walking through a party and like it's super unsettling. Like it feels so wrong. Even though it's just little things like eye lines not matching and like tiny continuity errors or breaking the 180-degree rule. Like he just subtly makes you super uncomfortable. And I like that a lot.
It's so good. It's so good. But yeah, I'm trying to make a top 10 80s movies list to put on my Instagram, and it's very difficult.
Good luck.
But this latest watch just put it at number 6, so we'll see how it goes.
How many of them are horror movies? Because you got like The Thing. I think The Exorcist might have been 80s too.
I think that one's it's 70s.
It is, right? Okay. Maybe 70s feels more right.
I don't have The Thing in there.
Oh, yeah, 73 for The Exorcist.
It depends on whether or not you count Come and See Blue Velvet as horror movies. I don't count them as horror movies, but they are terrifying.
I wouldn't, but they're unsettling the same way like Aronofsky likes to do. Like I don't count Black Swan as a horror movie, but it's got the same Lynch feel to it.
Yeah. Well, okay. Then in that case, the only horror movies on the list are The Shining and Possession. Have you had a chance to see that yet?
No.
Dude.
I'll probably end up watching it like real soon though, probably this week.
Dude, it's gnarly. It's like, it's so gnarly. Like, I can't believe that they were allowed to make that movie. It's European, so whatever.
Yeah.
But it's great. It's great.
Where is it from again?
So it's half. So it's a production that's half French, half West German, because they shot in both areas. But the director is Polish.
Gotcha.
So
it's a little bit of everything, like fucking Children of Men.
Yeah, it's it's diverse for Europe, but that's it. Sam Neill is from New Zealand, and the actress, I can't pronounce her name, but she's from France. Yeah. But yeah, that was The Shining, folks. Thank you for tuning in to our Stephen King episode. I know our friend Brian Baker wants to do all the Frank Darabont adaptations of Stephen King, which I would be super down to do. We got to work out the schedule with him, but I can't wait to do that either later this year or next year. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. You can find the Jaredcast everywhere. Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud. Shout out SoundCloud. You guys are the most consistent audience. Thank you, folks in Europe,
for real.
that I can't get in touch with. But thank you for listening. Seriously. And thank you to my co-producer Jared.
Hello.
Yeah. We got 2 more weeks till the Halloween special, so keep tuning in.
And here's a tease: we'll be talking about The Shining again at one point.
We'll see. We love you. Goodbye.
See you.